sunlight onto receivers which are made out of cast iron. We store the thermal energy in the cast iron receivers, and 24 hours we can drive a 1 megawatt turbine. This was a 12 million euro flagship research project sponsored by the German and the Indian government, and the plant is operational since 3 years. We are also very active in the field of training and education. We conducted more than 40 workshops for engineers, for all those who are interested, and literally every year we have hundreds of thousands of visitors which come to our headquarters in Abu Road in Rajasthan. Interestingly, the whole programs, solar renewable energy programs, have been wholeheartedly promoted by the Brahma Kumaris management, and I would like to mention in this context that Brahma Kumaris is advocated by women, is managed by women, and I hope you all agree, if women would be more in leading positions, we probably would have a little less problems in the world. Simply bring it to the point, if we all join hands, we all open our hearts and our minds to the climate problems, and we create a good mindset, a loving mindset for the world, a peaceful mindset for the world, then we choose the right technology and we are able to become healers of the current crisis. Climate change is not really a big problem. The money is there, the technology is there, and the strategy is there. We have to change on the inside. So that's why Brahma Kumaris is here since 15 years. We also have a stand in the Blue Zone. I think it's number 43. You can visit us, you can look at our programs. And thank you very much for your attention. And here you can see more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Golo. And also for sharing what we can do and what mindset is needed to choose the right technology. So for talking about what we can do, we will move to how we can be. And our next speaker is Thomas Hirsch. Welcome. Thomas is a diploma geographer and political scientist and the founding director of Climate and Development Advice, a global consultancy network. Since 2014, he has published 60 articles and publications in 6 languages. And one was Rethinking the Climate and Disaster Finance Agenda 2022, which is very relevant to this COP. And before founding the advice bureau, Thomas Hirsch has worked as a policy advisor to the Bread for the World and for Greenpeace, etc. So welcome, Thomas.
Thank you very much, Sonja. Thanks for having me. And as you have heard, oh, now it's better, good. Thanks for having me. And as you have heard, I will look at it at the role of core values and principles a little bit from the political side. And I will discuss how they, or which role they play in climate negotiations. And I have 3 main arguments to share with you. The first question is, why are they relevant? Well, they are relevant to provide what I would call the necessary moral compass to climate negotiations. They have their own long-term logics, and they are very complementary to the logics of policymakers and in the economic sector. Policymakers take decisions that are determined by short-term interests, say to be re-elected in the next 2 to 5 years. Businessmen and women take decisions that are determined by mid-term logics or interests to be profitable or to see the return in investment, and these are investment or decision-making cycles of, say, 5 to 12 years. What is missing is the long-term perspective in climate negotiations, and this is where moral and ethical values and aspects come into the picture. They are of long-term nature. They can guide the decisions we take throughout our entire lifespan. And this long-term orientation of decision-making is the only one which is capable to deal with the challenges of climate change, because climate impacts are of long-term nature as well. So therefore, to navigate through the challenges of climate change, the moral and ethical compass provides us the long-term orientation we need. And it complements political and economic compasses. If not rooted in ethics, climate diplomacy will not deliver what we need to overcome the climate crisis. When we talk about core values and ethics, and now I come to my next point, the question is, what is at the core of that? Well, I would argue that climate justice is at the core of that. But everybody here talks about climate justice, while in reality, climate justice is anything but not a very simple concept. If you look at it, you find out that it is multidimensional, with different groups of right holders, with even partly conflicting legitimate right claims. And we have a range of different duty bearers. What are dimensions of climate justice? Well, we talk about justice to the poor and climate vulnerable. Those people who have done the least to provoke the problem, but who suffer the most. Then we talk about justice in transition, and about the provision of justice to those who will or may lose their jobs because of a transition to a zero carbon economy. And they claim for justice to be compensated for that. We talk about justice to nature, and that is at the very heart the right not to be extincted as a species. And then we talk about intergenerational justice, the rights of future generations of self-determination, which is severely at threat of climate change. So we have different dimensions. How does that all work together in climate diplomacy? My third argument is that ethics serve as bridge builders in climate negotiations and as a prerequisite to achieve transformative alliances across different stakeholder groups. What is meant by that? Ethics can sensitize actors for possible connections with others and with the environment across typical barriers. And if we look at discourses, we have usually 4 layers of discourses. At the surface, we talk politics. We talk about competing solutions for a problem like loss and damage. At the second layer, we talk about paradigms, which are tool sets of political instruments. At the third layer, we have narratives, which make the connect to the emotional part. And at the deepest layer, we have core values. And that is my last point. If you cannot agree on something at the level of political solutions, you need to go to the next deeper level of the discourse, and maybe you end up even at the lowest or deepest layer, and that is ethics. And here you might find convergence which will help you to decide, to agree in the end of a new solution which will help to overcome the climate crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Yes, and also explaining the different layers of values and ethics, and also bringing the long-term perspective. And we'll go further deeper inside, talking about consciousness and awareness. And Maureen Goodman is here on my left. She's the program director of Brahma Kumaris in the UK, and Brahma Kumaris representative to UN Vienna. She has a long-term involvement in interreligious dialogue and represents Brahma Kumaris on the board of religious leaders of Aliyah Interfaith Institute and Living Peace projects. And in 2022, she traveled to Ukraine with religious leaders as part of Faith in Ukraine initiative. And she's also part of Spirit of Humanity Forum, offering safe spaces for dialogue. And they have also a session here at COP27 on this topic. So welcome, Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for what my colleagues have shared, Golo and Thomas, and for beginning to bring that lens of the longer term perspective, which is so crucial. And I was very struck hearing Mia Motley from Barbados at the Youth and Children's stand. And she spoke about this. She spoke about discernment and about passing on the baton. So the long-term perspective. And so, of course, it's all about the lens with which we take decisions and the lens with which we create policies. Consciousness, which is my theme, is behind all of our actions. So actually, all of our actions actually have an impact on the climate. But what is consciousness? What does it mean? I can't understand. Louder. Oh, okay. Can you not hear me? Okay. Pull this closer to me. Thank you. Have to decipher Sonia's handwriting too. So all of our actions actually do have an impact on the climate because consciousness has an impact. But what is consciousness? It's really the awareness that I'm a living, thinking, aware being that has memories, feelings, emotions, takes decisions, has intention. And so when we act, we are bringing that part of ourselves, we are bringing that consciousness to our actions. We don't act as an autonomous, we act from the inside out. And if you see in today's world generally, there is a lot of violence in human consciousness. And this has had an impact on the natural world directly through those vibrations and feelings that permeate into nature, but also, of course, the feelings and emotions that we have inside cloud our ability to take those long-term decisions with the lens of the benefit for the whole of humanity and the lens of the sustainability and future flourishing of our earth. And so what is needed is nothing more than really a whole transformation in our being. And although that has to happen individually, and each one of us can take responsibility for that, I also believe that as the wave increases, it's going to become something that many people become part of. I was witnessing yesterday somebody talking about the frustrations that they feel at climate change conferences and the negotiations, frustration, sometimes feeling of victory in a way that you've achieved something, sometimes defeat. And the person chairing that session was Mr. Alok Sharma, the president, who's handing over, and his face, yes, yes, I identify with all of that. So we are human beings, absolutely, in this process. And as we bring about that transformation in ourselves, we begin to then transform not just our policy decisions, but our very way of relating to nature. And so we move into a relationship of respect rather than exploitation. We move into a relationship where we understand that we are part of this earth in a living system, and we contribute to that. We're not separate. And a few years ago now, even UNESCO started using the phrase changing minds, not nature, not climate. So the acknowledgement of the importance of what is inside having the impact externally. Also, if we are more attuned to our internal world, we can bring our inner wisdom to bear on the decision making, And I wonder, where is wisdom and where is love in our negotiations today? So the inner dimension very much needed. And in that situation, it's so much more possible to sustain the actions. So whatever decisions we make, whatever policies we make, whatever changes we make in our lifestyle, they need to be sustained over a long period. And that is only possible when it's accompanied by a shift of consciousness within. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maureen. And it's so important that we always remind each other on wisdom, on love, on our good feelings, and be interconnected. And actually, before I open up for questions, I think we'll ask Maureen to guide a 2-minute meditation with us, because that will also set us for the rest of the day and give a practical example of what Maureen was speaking about. So I'll ask you to sit up in your chairs and relax, and we'll do 2 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you. So just in these 2 minutes, become aware of your inner thoughts and feelings. And they may be very much connected to the outside. In other words, what's happening around us, what's happening in this conference. But let me take the journey to connect my thoughts and feelings on the inside to my inner being. And if I go deep inside, beneath the whirlwind of emotions,
it's the world's most witnessed event. The Mother of the World invites you to confront together the climate crisis. Efforts united in fulfilling global goals. Solutions for the world's most pressing challenges. COP27, Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, 2022.